Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about boycotts. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, hypothetically, if all FANG developers and other potential candidates have decided to boycott the FANG company due to that their interviews reject older candidates, would you personally support this? Why or why not? I'm pretty sure I wouldn't support something like that. And that has mostly to do with that for me, business is about merit and ideologies and so forth is the realm of what I argue at the very least. Politics and laws and things like that should be about. Where basically if we feel that if the private sector performs like it does something, or like a private individual does something that we can as a society considers immoral, then we should agree on, okay, let's not do that and make it a legal thing. Now you probably know that there are laws for things such as, rejecting people based on race or religion, depending on your country now, of course, and your region and so forth. And you can't dismiss people for being pregnant, etc., etc. And as far as I know, we don't have anything that has to do with age. But the thing, and maybe we should have a law for that. But the thing that I find difficult to believe is that if you go to a FANG company and you are a certain age, that is the only thing that is going to determine whether or not they hire you. I find that very difficult to believe because, I mean, imagine yourself, some of the world's best software developers are in their 50s. And in my mind, at the very least, it like this idea that some people have that, well, I can't hire someone who's 40 or 50 or whatever, right? Because they're soon going to retire. I kind of go, well, if your whole plan when it comes to making a profit from this person is that they should be there for at least 20 years, then I'm really, really wondering like how you're staying in business, because that basically would mean that you're not quote unquote making any you're not benefiting for 20 years from a person, or like it's going to take that long for you to get a return on investment. Most software developers, like if you hire a craftsman, doesn't matter if it's a software developer or not, you are hiring them because their immediate involvement will in some fashion, or at very least short term, give you some benefits. So if someone is older, what does that matter in terms of, if we're just now talking like we're like removing like prejudices and things, like we're like looking at it as just a clinical objective thing in terms of producing value, how does their age in any way factor in? Now let's say that we were doing construction work or something like that. Let's say that your age has put you in a certain fitness level where you can't really carry the same load as somebody else, which is a common thing as well. Well, then age again kind of falls out the window, because I know for a fact that there are people in their 50s that are quite a lot stronger than me, and guys who are younger than me who are unfit. It's the same thing I tell people about being like a fireman or like something like a firefighter or stuff like that, where, oh, you shouldn't let women in the police force or things like that. I kind of go, is every single aspect of that job down to how much physical strength do you have? And as I like to say, if you really only care about results, which business is supposed to be about, well, then regardless of any other circumstance, practically, if you can do the job, you should have some type of value. And that's what I tell people. Like when you get to a point when a company does something or like has immoral practices that are not based on like making a profit or like these sort of objective things that I hope that most of us can agree on, well, then the company can absolutely be corrected and so forth and so forth, but there are also other companies who see the value. That's sort of the open market idea that, like, imagine this. If the FANG companies all said that they only hire clowns, or someone who has had a clown background, or who's at one point in their life been part of a circus, would we rally about that too? Like, would we all go out in the streets and like say that that is unfair, and so forth and so forth? I'm like, guys, they can make up basically any rules they want, and as long as there's no legislation for it, like so forth and so forth, you go and talk to your politicians instead of going out and doing rallies. If you well, you can rally so that the politicians will fix this if this is important to you. But my suspicion is that this has less to do, because it's always about these damn FANG companies when people ask me these things. And my suspicion is that you perceive the FANG companies as being the peak of the mountain, and there are software developers out there who feel like that their careers come like it should all culminate. The peak of it all is to be part of that. And people, I suspect, don't like the idea of being excluded and not being good enough or being allowed to be part of that. That is what my suspicion is. It is literally the same thing I say when, like, if someone would be upset with me by saying that, oh, the Olympics has an age range, or like you're not allowed to do A, B, and C based on that. Like, because again, like it's a prestige thing to be part of the Olympics, just as it's a prestige thing for a lot of people to be part of a FANG company. So if I tell you that you're dismissed based on some factor that is, in this case, kind of out of your control, of course, that would, I argue, it is a little bit unfair, and at the same time it makes no sense. Based on what I've said so far, I would argue from my point of view, if a FANG company just dismisses you because you are too old, then it has nothing to do, it's completely illogical thing, unless we're talking about that they want to brand themselves in a certain way or so forth and so forth. I mean, guys, then we should just keep the old, in my opinion at the very least, then we should just allow people to say, I feel that it's unfair that you are not allowing me into your group. And if I feel that it's unfair because of whatever reason, whatever you're trying to achieve, well, that doesn't matter, because you should never allow anybody to set up some basic rules for how they would like to run their business, their little book club or stuff like that. I mean, imagine yourself, like, you could literally at any point have anybody come into any context and just say, I don't agree with the rules that you have put up for your own little private organization or whatever you're doing, right? And I expect you to change all the things that you do, or like the way that you do things, so that it will accommodate me. So what I want you to take away from this is that I don't think I would support something like, ageism and stuff like that, in terms of, like, unless we make it a legislation. If we as a society feel that it is unfair to exclude someone based on their age, which I absolutely agree with, it seems, if nothing else, it's completely, in my opinion, very illogical. I mean, or rather, where do you draw the line? How old is too old? Like, that to me makes no sense. I mean, if in theory, let's just say that I come up with some type of, like, if this is true, that this is actually how it's going, and I'm not so sure that it is going on in this way, or rather that it is the way that people claim it seems to be. Because imagine if I come up with an elixir of eternal youth and I live to be 1,000 years old, but I'm still as fit and so forth. Are you going to dismiss me based on that too? And my point being that I argue that I don't think that this has so much to do with the age itself. It has to do with more factors than that. Because otherwise you're basically dealing with what I would argue borders on religious or like ideologies, where, for example, a women's book club is only allowing in women, for example. It has nothing to do with any, like, because that's the way they want to roll in that specific book club, and there are men's clubs that only allow men in and no women and so forth. Like, these are, I would argue, pretty benign things, all things considered. You can think it's a little bit silly, but hey, nobody's stopping anybody from just making their own book club for women and for men or so forth and so forth. It's the same thing with companies. If you want to just hire old people, go and make a company and make your entire company about that, if that's what you want. And hopefully the open market is going to do its thing and prove who is in the right and so forth and so forth. I'm not saying that that is a conclusive answer or anything that definitive, but I would rather approach things from that angle, because I find it very difficult to believe that if, let's say, Linus Torvalds banged on the FANG company's door and said, hey guys, I would like to work for you, that he's going to be dismissed because he's above 40. Have a great day.